Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and also this little healing adventure that we are on together. Since the last video, I've actually continued, pushing, trying, getting into higher and higher keys simply because for the longest time, leveling up and doing lower keys, anything I would say below a 12, you kind of not really experiencing any really challenge at all. Like your job as a healer is not really required because as I mentioned in the last video, I was kind of surprised about like how little damage, like unavoidable damage there actually is in these dungeons, right? Most of the stuff is avoidable, so if you get in a good group that, that dodges stuff and like, doing the mechanics, you're basically not really needed. And what kind of surprised me was that these lower keys, but it felt like at least it was like mainly ran by people who was doing ult, so just was clearly knowing the mechanics. This week, or like in this video, me like pushing higher and up, I'm even like going up to a 16. I kind of noticed that, I'm kind of running into now the people that's like, so not only are the dungeons getting harder and like the more, not avoidable damage is also getting like harder, which I definitely will show off later. I'm also just running into like really strange people, the typical pucking experience, and I just, noticed that, people are just like not really aware of like the mechanics. That's like now when like the people that I'm running into. So for the first dungeon right here, I ran into a 14 Fronted Heights, no warm-up, nothing, just go straight into a 14 as healer, which was exciting. As you can see that the Demon Hunter, is dying, and also I'm kind of like, getting into use of like, when is it my fault and when is it not? Someone mentioned in the video, and this is something I've heard a lot of times, that you can't heal stupid. Meaning that, if people are standing in mechanics, they're not dodging, all that kind of stuff, they just get one-shotted, well, that's not really much you can do about that, right? But I'm also trying to work on my reaction time at the same time, because if you saw there in the beginning of this clip, the Evoker was actually sitting at lower health for like a few seconds where I could have been faster. So one thing that's like the reason why my reaction time is a little bit slow is because I'm actually still not used to playing a healer yet. Now, my eyes are like, focused on the nameplates, meaning that, because, I used to play a tank and also DPS and stuff like that. That's where all the information that I need typically is, the nameplate of the enemies. My eyes should be more, on the health bars of my party members. So I'm always, just because my eyes like are looking kind of the wrong way, my reaction times is like lowered by a few seconds. And then there's the other aspect of like, again, sometimes I just completely forget that I am the healer, right? I will look at my party members and I would just ask myself, why are people not healing? And I realize, oh wait, I'm the healer, I'm supposed to be healing. I'm just like too focused on like, I just go into like DPS brain or like whatever, just firing away, not realizing, oh wait, no, I'm the guy on the job here. it's funny to look back, like of course it's something like I'm getting better and better at, more comfortable playing a healer, more aware that I'm playing a healer. But it's definitely fun looking back at these clips and like, kind of like looking and seeing like actually how slow my reaction time sometimes is. Another interesting thing is, I mentioned also in my last video how I really love the whole mana gameplay. And that's something, that I have gotten even more used to, or like more experience with, because going into higher keys means also that you have to burn more mana. Now it also just, doesn't help that I'm actually fairly under geared a little bit here for 14s. I believe I'm like around 440, 450 maybe. But someone mentioned in my comments on my last video about how, like, he asked me, like, how am I dealing with mana, because he kind of seems like he's always running into mana problems, and it's, it wasn't something I experienced that much of. Like, of course, I would, like, use mana and, like, get rid, but I hadn't been completely, like, emptied out, right, in the lower keys, but as soon as I actually pushed up here, I kind of noticed it. Now, another thing is that this week, we do have the good old Spiteful, right, the shades that's following you. That is definitely something that's going to be a huge factor in my mana regen, because there are going to be times where I just literally won't get out of combat for like 5 to 10 minutes. Or at least it feels like that, right? Because the shades prolong combat, and usually you don't really have time, or you don't really have a tank that like pays attention that, you might be running out of mana, or you might be wanting to get out of combat. So he just like, continues on. So I really had to be like hyper aware of my mana, and you know, making sure that I don't really spend it all, leave people around those like 70% like health, right? Because like I have time to react to it. Like I just need to regen some mana, and also just making sure, or like trying to go really far ahead of the group if everything is dying, throwing a healing totem, and then, you know, going like further on, like moving on, so whenever that dies you can get out of the range of the shades just for that second to like start regenerating mana. And honestly, again, like, you know, it's kind of annoying sometimes with the shade, because like it's like, oh, like I would have been like fine if it wasn't for this like stupid affix and whatever. But I do still very much enjoy the strategic like element of this gameplay, like, you know, planning ahead, realizing, okay, I need to drink because like I have a boss coming up, and like, you know, I'm at like 50 or 40% mana. It's tyrannical week, so I need to get a drink in. Like, how can I do that without slowing the group like completely down? Because that is, again, that's like one of the worst feelings, when like you have to drink and then everyone's just waiting around for you. A side note here that I also really thoroughly enjoy with healing, also why I wanted to heal, what you saw right there, the guy, like the tank here going on the right side of the start of the dungeon. You know, playing something else than tank, and specifically like healer, where I'm like really hyper focused on like, you know, the survival of the group, like everything like that, you know, how what the tank is, I'm really like aware of what the tank is pulling, you know, because I need to like be proactive and like, you know, react, or like also just be ready to react to whatever mechanics are throwing my way. So seeing a lot of the other tanks and kind of being like an undercover tank in this like perspective of like, you know, just seeing what other tanks are doing is really enlightening. Like, so I mentioned before, the guy went right. I usually just always went left, and I haven't really thought about it that much, to be honest. Now I kind of like, you know, aware that, oh, on the other side, there's a guy who's just doing melee instead of having two casters, which is a huge benefit, right? Like it's a lot of group damage just to have an extra caster in the group, especially on like high fortified weeks or something like that. So, you know, I mean, it's also a chance for me to picking up on what other tanks are doing and just becoming a better tank. Like, that's one of the things that, I don't know if it's not talked about enough, but like if you really want to become like the best tank or like whatever, you need to spend a lot of time watching other tanks. And of course you can do that on live streams, but you can also just play an ult and actually just see what other tanks are doing, because you will also see on the other side of like tanks doing something that you're like, oh, okay, I should never do this, because when this tank did it, like everything just went to, you know, shit. So when you're testing yourself out or challenging yourself by like playing something completely new or like a new role, you're bound to make really stupid mistakes, like walking right into a sleeping puddle. And, you know, it's just about like how much brain power you are actually using. You know, most of my focus is basically on healing and doing my, you know, quote unquote rotation or whatever you want to call it. So I'm like, that's why I'm not like picking up. As soon as I get at all under like control and I get more comfortable on playing, you know, healer and also just specifically restoration shaman, all of that will just kind of fall into place, right? So if you are watching this in yourself and you like with yourself, if you're watching this and you're also challenging yourself or doing something new, and you see yourself doing these mistakes, don't be too hard on yourself. It's whatever. Talking about like doing mistakes and everything, this Waycrest Manor 16 run is basically just a run where everything kind of just falls flat. The first thing off, like, you know, the tank doesn't pick up every single shade, which is kind of like a red flag and will also just, you know, come into play later. But that's not like to throw shade on the tank or anything, because honestly, I should not have been in here at all. And that becomes very wary on the first boss, where we actually wiped, just because I was not at all prepared for the amount of damage that was actually going out. Now, of course, you could look at this and, you know, ask yourself, okay, well, we didn't really interrupt that many, you know, that spells or anything, so that's also like, you know, why so much damage was just absolutely tearing us apart. But I was absolutely panicking here, trying to keep up. I was really like unsure of like, yeah, it's just how much damage actually like went up, because I thought that 14 was relatively easy. We did have a few deaths, and looking back at that, I could also see there that, you know, I had some people like using defensive and stuff like that, but yeah, this run right here, this boss fight just really highlights how big of a difference there can be between the different like keystone levels. So not only am I like low geared, but what also just really is killing us is my balance between doing damage and healing. Because if I feel like I'm just spam healing, I feel really useless and just as a bad healer, which kind of maybe sounds stupid, but I want to do damage, I want to do more, but then, you know, I'm not prepared. Again, this comes back to, like, you know, experience, because I need to know when I should stop DPSing and when I should stop being focused on healing. I do use a cooldown, but, you know, it's just too late, and also because we have the 50% healing reduction, which I should have been aware of, which, you know, would come up. I should make sure that they were topped off before that, you know, 50% healing actually went through. So unfortunately, the cooldown wasn't enough, and we actually end up just wiping here, since we only have we basically halfway through and we only have 1 DPSer alive. But our Gear tank, and I guess also DPSer, just doesn't want to wipe, which, you know, is a huge time waste. If you're watching this and you are a tank yourself or just whatever, just, you know, wiping is not bad. If it's everyone is dead, just go again. And we go again. Now the second time through is going a lot better. So what I'm doing here is I'm basically just making sure that I get like all my damage out here in the beginning. We already have 50% healing. So, you know, anyways, I'm not gonna like pump out as much healing here. I should rather, you know, put down a healing totem, get people relatively stable, and then make sure I have stuff up and I am personally ready to go as soon as this 50% healing reduction actually goes. This is where, you know, this is where I want to like pop off and like do a lot of healing. But you can see like how much damage is going out, and like I'm not really healing that much at this point. Which just really made me realize how like big impact the gear has on a healer, because like honestly on a tank it really doesn't make that, and that's okay. So I'm not saying that it doesn't make a huge difference when you go like between like really low level and like the highest eye level you can be, right? There's a huge difference between those two tanks and what they can survive and all that kind of stuff. But the gear progression on a tank, honestly, it feels less impactful in my opinion. If you get a shield, that of course feels really strong, but overall, just you have so strong defensive cooldowns that usually does take a lot of the bulk of what damage you will take. And, you know, DPS it also kind of makes sense, but if you get a weapon, again, the rest of the gear doesn't really add that much damage. But on a healer, it really feels like you need to get like a most out of the gearing as you possibly can. Because there are just a lot more like straight up healing checks than there are, you know, DPS checks or tank checks and whatever. So there's gonna be the amount of things you can heal out is going to definitely be tested. And you can also see this is probably another sign that I'm really low on eyeball, just how much I'm just pumping out healing and how much mana I'm just, you know, spending. But yeah, we do actually end up getting it down. I completely go basically which I actually don't. There's actually a key difference between going completely 0% and then just having a little bit. While I drink, the rest of the party just, you know, keeps on going, which is, it's fine. You know, you can catch up. If you're watching this and you're watching a healer, just make sure that you're using defensive cooldown when your healer is not here. People are standing in shades, which is just really nasty. I accidentally go in and pull more. The warrior goes down, and I believe it was the shade that kills him. I don't believe the cast that just went off was on him. I think, it was on me, I guess. Here I'm just, you know, watching the health pass while I'm just trying to keep everyone alive. People are dying, and the tanks decide to just pull just everything, making the Inspire also just like really scattered. We wipe, we go again. And then we just decide to go, I guess, pack by pack. And I was really frustrated at this point, I'm not gonna lie. There was like a lot of really inconsistent and just really weird pulls. It didn't really feel like this tank was quite aware of like a route or like really the mechanics in here. Also, you can see like on his like healing that he was just really low on his own healing, which is pretty bad for a Demon Hunter. And I've kind of noticed this thing with like now that I played a lot of like, not a lot of, but now that I'm playing more healer and other roles, I kind of noticed this with other tanks that they would kind of just do this thing where they were idle, they would just completely overpull way too much, get everyone killed, and then just go straight back to just one pack at a time, where it's like, guys, there is a middle ground, like, please. Here again, I am just not prepared for how much this damage, like this throne actually does. I've never really paid attention to it, you know, because of like playing a tank and all that. And and people just doesn't really seem like either people are not focusing on it or we just have really low damage. But these thorns are just up there for like such a long time. You can see here people are still not targeting, like 3 or 4 seconds goes by. And I'm in between of like, you know, well, we need to kill them. So my DPS brain goes in and like, you know, try to like, you know, kill them myself instead of actually just focusing on healing. Like I need to remember what my job is, right? So unfortunately, it's our Xiaoman that's gonna go down, and it's a shame because he is actually our top DPSer right here. So that's really gonna suffer for us. And the hunter is also going down. I'm focusing on like healing myself and also keeping, you know, stuff in the tank. Again, I should just have been focusing on the guy on the thorn. This is the thing about, you know, learning the mechanics from a new perspective. So everyone, you know, the only interaction I've had with the thorns is that they need to die. Now all of a sudden my interaction with them is I need to heal the people who is like in the thorn, right? And it's all about, you know, learn the mechanics from a new perspective and be like critical, like analyzing what is it that's going wrong, what can you do different. So yeah, this whole thing just completely falls apart. So we go again, but the fatal flaw this time is that the debuffs are just not getting cleared. Yeah, I know, I'm awful. It was getting late, I was tired, and I just really could not deal with both, like, you know, firstly my own mistakes of like going into 16 way too, like before I was like even high enough level. But then also just having to deal with a run that's gonna be so painful. Would we have like timed it? Probably not. Would we have finished it? Yeah, most likely, but it would not have been fun, it would have been a pain. And so I still stand by the, you know, the decision of like, you know, you can leave a key, but saying that I'm gonna get a big old cup of karma in this run right here. It's a 12 Everbloom. Everything is going really smoothly. We have 0 deaths, we have 0, you know, any form of like struggle or whatsoever. We get to the finish second boss, we have a little bit of time before Bloodlust, and yeah, everything is just, you know, handy dandy. So what goes wrong here in the first pull is actually mostly my fault again, but you also will notice that we have pulls dropping on the bosses basically every single time someone jumps. My fault is here, I should not stand this like far away. I am spawning the Incorporeal all the way down here, and as the tank says as well, it's like, well, you know, please don't do that. You are spawning them there, like that. You can't really do that. We can't do anything about it because, you know, we have to be in range and all that kind of stuff. But the other fatal flaw when we go in the second time is that our dear Paladin, as the tank is figuring out here, is the one who's putting around all these pulls. So he of course asked him to, hey Paladin, can you stop? Like nothing at all mean, as you can see it here, he just continues to do it. But hey, honestly, it's not really a big deal. We get him, like we get the boss, everything is fine. But how does the Paladin react? Well, he leaves, of course. Like, why wouldn't you? But here comes the absolutely crazy part to me. Like, not, well, of course, the fact that he's leaving is like, okay, why? And I see that he's following us along, and I knew exactly what was going, like, what is about to happen. It is crazy to me that like the levels that people will just so sabotage in this game. He was called out in a relatively like nice manner, honestly. Like people didn't even call him an idiot or like just anything. Just straight up just, hey man, can you stop just standing near the boss? And just no elaboration, nothing. He just instantly leaves and then just wipe us. I'm not even mad at this point. I'm not even upset. Again, also because, you know, you could view this as karma of me leaving the previous key that I then get a lever, but honestly, it's fine, right? We go ahead and we format it. As I said before, this run red is extremely fine before this this whole thing happened. So so yeah, we just formatted it and it's an easy clap. But man, just you know what? Like at the end of the day, this Paladin clearly had a much worse day than I did from him leaving. I'm sure that he's probably more upset than we would ever be. So Honestly, don't sweat it too much, but it is kind of funny though. Now I thought I would do the Waycrest Manor justice. Also just because I don't think I had timed it at this point. So we went into a 14, sorry, no, a 12. Again, with a very interesting tank. Here again, you know, I noticed that he did not really pick up all of the shapes. Luckily, I think the Hunter and me did it for him. I don't know what it is with me and Death Knights. Because some of you guys really nicely pointed out that, you know, with the Death Knight, you know, you're not supposed to heal him, basically. He's just on his own. I'm actually aware of that because, you know, if anything, I have some experiences with the other tanks. And yeah, when you're healing a Death Knight, you don't look at the health bar, you look at the runic power. And if you're looking now since the beginning of this dungeon, this guy just has everything. We are also just going pack by pack. You can see here we're taking, you know, the shades and then, you know, the 2 guards, which takes forever long. We take the 2 sides here and then straight to boss instead of like, you know, chain pulling and doing anything. And you know, I'm just thinking to myself, yeah, this is gonna run, it's gonna take a long time, or like much longer than it probably needed to, but hey, at least we're gonna be safe, right? Like I don't really have to stress that much. I mean, that said, you know, you can, even though it is a 12 and it's much easier than the 16, just being aware of like when to like be more prepared to healing and just to heal the right times definitely make this boss fight like much easier. But it is like clear that, you know, even on a 12, like if I'm not prepared, I can fall behind, and if you fall behind as a healer, it's really difficult to run catch up as a healer. It's really stressful. Like that's where you like, you know, are spam healing, using all your mana. You can see here people are getting really low, and I had plenty of time to save the Hunter, the Hunter here. I honestly, the reason why I kept him at 1% is honest because I thought he would die. I didn't see that I didn't realize that he actually would live that long. So, yeah, just honestly, I could commit a lot easier. Again, we're going pack by pack, which is dreadfully slow. Here we're going a little bit bigger, which is really nice because going big is fun, right? Even though it is stressful, and that's where you will challenge yourself, and that's where, you know, I just personally have the most fun. If you are new to tanking, honestly, and this might be controversial, but honestly, I would rather just that you went bigger and then we all wiped and then we slowed down, rather than doing the opposite way around and you just go slow from the beginning. Because it is from dying and from pulling a lot that you are learning a lot. Also here it's a little red flag for tanks, just picked up on it as a healer. I actually removed this aggro that I have where I would like, you know, say whenever I'm done eating, or whenever I begin, more importantly, because whenever, you know, sometimes when I was playing the tanks and they saw this macro, they would just completely stop, even though that they could continue, right? I'm just getting a few seconds to drink and they would just completely hold, as the tank did right there, which is really not that beneficial. Again, those dreaded debuffs, we are just not getting them cleared. We're getting up to 40 stacks, I believe. And then luckily enough, I don't think this tank meant to do this. Maybe he didn't know that he could pull all the way up to the courtyard. But luckily enough, we actually get a fire spawning right there on the boss. The tank just have to move him just slightly, and there we go. So we actually do get up just the last here. You can see me being like really unprepared for it, because I was like, oh, okay, we're just gonna kill the last few percentage. But no, we actually went off, and I'm really glad that I put down this this cooldown, because it's because Spirit Link has such a huge like usage in Mythic Plus. You can really mitigate a lot of damage, and I need to be better at using it. Here you can see me. Oh, this is also really funny. I was doing some settings, I think, in one of my records. You know, I was just not really paying attention. All of a sudden, people are just dropping low, right? And I going fully, completely ham here, really panicking. You see the rogue dropping down to 1%, his cheat death's popping off. I'm dying here. I'm looking, what killed us? And then, of course, the tank accidentally pulled the boss. So that was fun, but then we go in and we clear the whole room. The tank wasn't really sure how much percentage we needed, but that's fine. You know, I can just pull for him, kind of like leading the way. Thank God for the pinging system, so I don't really seem like such an asshole doing it. I just a tiny bit of an asshole, because at least now I'm like pinging where I'm going to ninja pull. But yeah, you can pick up the percentage for the tank here. That's pretty nice. And this dungeon really just, you know, highlight the complexity that is, you know, the influence of the healer, because clearly people, they wouldn't have survived a lot of these pulls if I wasn't there to heal them. But then again, you know, I can't really make up for their mistakes more than just filling up their health bars and maybe, you know, being a little bit more focused on interrupting and CCing. Like, all the fundamentals, I can't change that. That's the same way as I probably can as a tank, right? If I see the people really suffering riff interrupts, I can actually go in and decide to pull packs that has lesser caster mobs, right? You know, going slower and whatever might not be beneficial for the timer, but like, you will get through it and you have the option to have that influence. I just really don't do that as a healer. And yeah, we get through it actually. We actually end up 2-chesting it, which is real nice. Got a big amount of IO, and just I'm ready to go for next week. So yeah, right now what I feel like what's holding me back again, as it was the same on my manga, is simply just gear. So my goal for next week is really trying to get up on gear. I think I reached 460 this week, 459 maybe even. So I really am hoping that a really great vault that would like pump up my eye levels just a tiny bit so I can push even more comfortably into the hierarchies, because I really want to go into a 20. I really want to see how it is healing maybe even above a 20, where like you really are getting tested. You know, I might not be skill levelly there enough, but that's what I wanted to figure out. I want to go in and do the mistakes, showcase them off to you guys, and maybe we can both learn from them, right? But all that is for, you know, the next video, maybe next videos. But for now, thank you so much for watching and take care, everyone.